I've got to tick it, haven't I, before you can.
All right. So, hi, Ro. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
And thank you for agreeing to do this. I was thinking during the week that when we first started Australasian Change Days in 2020, that you and some of the other team members who had never experienced Change Days asked me about my experiences at Berlin Change Days and why I kept going back and what it was that was different about Change Days that lured me all the way to the other side of the world. Of course, 2 years later, or 3 years later, we're coming up to our third Australasian Change Days. So I guess throwing the question now back at you, why did you choose to be part of it for 2 years, and why do you think people should attend it?
So great question, and I guess there are two parts to it. The first part, obviously, was the connection that we had in terms of knowing each other. So there was a bit of, if you thought it was good, then it's something that I wanted to experience, because obviously I know you and I trust your judgment. And I guess also just listening to the way you talked about it and the energy and the excitement that you had when you talked about it, that was what sort of drew me in. And then in terms of why did I stay with the team for 2 years, I think, first of all, partly because of the team that we had, which was an amazing self-organizing team. Obviously, you know, that's my topic of choice. Yep. And I just thought we did an amazing job in terms of working out in the early days who was going to do what, how we were going to work together, what happened when we didn't have agreements, how we discuss things, all of those things. It was just such a rich learning experience, and I do actually write about it in the last chapter of the book, actually.
Oh, wow.
Not that far. So for me it was experiential learning about how you work well together in a self-organizing team. And I think just the experiences that we had, the people that we met, the different people that we met from different parts of the world, it was just, you know, Perth is an isolated city, and it was just a fantastic way of experiencing the world when we were actually locked out of not only Australia, but the rest of the world. Yeah. And it was just such a rich learning experience that, yeah, it was all of those things. It was just, you know, it was a whole package kind of thing.
So why do you think other people should come along as participants?
For some of those reasons that, you know, we are in Australia. If anybody's listening in Australia, definitely would recommend joining it, because you get that European perspective. And also, you know, you get an opportunity to meet people from different kinds of disciplines that sit within that change space. And it's not just change practitioners, it's people who, you know, we're all contributing to the same thing, which is how do you make working in organizations even better? How do you help organizations improve and grow? And so you get that depth and that richness of experience from across the globe. And it's a really good time to actually reflect as well on your own learning. And maybe, you know, the way that I used it was I listened to things and got involved in things I wouldn't necessarily automatically choose. Yeah. And so it's also a great way of unlearning your own habits and putting yourself in a position where you don't know stuff and you're out there to learn. So I think it's a really great opportunity to do all of those things and many more things, but they're the ones that sort of stood out for me as the reasons why, you know, I wanted to be part of the story from the beginning, because of course we didn't have an Australasian Change Days, did we? So to be part of something from the beginning was just so exciting. Yeah. And you know, that was what captured me, I guess. It was like, we're doing something that's never been done before. And then we were doing it in the pandemic, and then we were having to do it all online, and we were learning stuff on the fly. And it was just, and that's kind of what Change Days is all about. That's the kind of environment we should be creating in organizations, so that people don't become stale, they don't become complacent, and they're willing to actually change their routines so they can do different things. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I know it's like, you know, choosing your favorite child, but were there any speakers or sessions that were particularly memorable for you?
So I think in the first year, what I really enjoyed was Eugenio's session, and I enjoyed it for many reasons. One, obviously the intellectual challenge that Eugenio presents, you know, really smart guy, and he gets you to think about things deeply, which I really enjoyed. And also very sort of visceral thing that just, when he did his presentation, he had candles behind him.
Yeah.
And it just felt very meditative and otherworldly almost. So that's why that stood out. And obviously he's just a really, really nice guy, which came through, just that authenticity just comes through in the way he speaks. And then I think last year, obviously Dave Snowden, because I'm a huge Dave Snowden fan, I love the way he challenges you intellectually. He confronts your perspectives and, you know, commonly held beliefs that you think are set in concrete. He makes you think about them differently. And so that philosophical mindset, and he hates that word, but that philosophical approach, I just love the way he does that. So obviously for me that stood out. And then the other one, which I really, really did enjoy, was Esther's session on the manifesto, which I thought was absolutely brilliant, because again, it was challenging your preconceived ideas and getting you to do things in a different way. So using creativity, using actual physical, tangible stuff to think about your own manifesto, which I thought was brilliant. I really, really enjoyed that session.
Cool. So why was it different? What we set out to do was to create a community. And what we set out to do was to create a conference. It wasn't really a conference, but it was an opportunity for people to, you know, to come together and share generously. And what was it like for you as both a participant and a team member, and how was it different from other conferences that you've experienced?
So again, I'll answer that in two parts. So for me as a team member, it was a really great learning experience, because as you know, we were sort of behind the scenes on the first one, doing a lot of the technology stuff, which I really enjoyed doing, but it was pretty hairy, particularly when one of my computers just crashed and I lost connection. And I wasn't sure if everybody in the room had been thrown out of the room. So those kind of things were both scary, but also challenging, and got you to really, you know, my Zoom skills just went up a notch. So I think that from a team perspective, that was one of the reasons. From sort of being a participant, it's just, I think it's that you can pick and choose from lots of different and varied topics, and things that you know, normally, and I've been to lots of conferences in the UK, and, you know, most of the topics are pretty standard stuff. It's the stuff that you would expect to see in a conference. And I think the thing about Australasian Change Days is that the topics that come up are not typically what you would expect to see in a conference. So it's different. It's very different from anything I'd experienced before. And that's what made it interesting, because you never knew what was going to be coming out of the session. So for me, that's the key thing. It's that learning new things, which then takes your skill set up a notch by being part of a team. And that you should always be doing that if you're part of a team. That's, you know, what are you offering to the team? You're in service of the team, so what are you offering to the team? And then that's sort of the variety and richness of again, that diversity.
Well, I'm glad it's been such a great experience for you. I know it's been great to have you on the team and part of the journey, establishing it, and for the whole 3 years being behind the scenes for me. Even now you're not officially on the team, you're still behind the scenes for me.
It's nice to be there without much of the responsibility.
I bet. As you probably remember, it's getting towards the pointy end, and we're getting on to producing and setting up producer facilitator relationships and things like that. So thanks as always. And did you want to give one big shout out to Australasian Change Days this year for any particular group of people, or I can edit this out so it's okay? But did you want to give a shout out in any particular way for Australasian Change Days?
So I would say if you are at all interested in how your organization works, so if you're a manager, if you're a team leader, if you're somebody who's maybe running their own business and you are interested in increasing your personal development, your own personal learning, then I would say come along to Australasian Change Days, because it's just such a great resource, and you will leave with at least one thing that maybe gets you to think about your business differently, or maybe gets you to think about your leadership style differently, or how you work in teams. So I would say, even if you have not got change in your title in any way, shape or form, a manager's job, a leader's job is all about growing the business, which is all about change. So I would say, you're going to learn something, come along, give it a try. It's not going to be painful, it will be fun. And you know what, because some of it's going to be on Zoom, if you don't like it, you can always switch off and go and have a cup of tea.
Thanks, Ro.
Cheers. Absolute pleasure. Great job, everybody.